You've just witnessed Real Madrid pick up the 15th Champions League title, creating history yet again. And the best just got better by bringing in my opinion, the world's best player right now.
This could be a runaway for Real Madrid.
Let me ask you a question. How many trophies do you think Barcelona will win this season? Because let's be honest, both Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid are stronger than they've been in years. And Barcelona, if you ask me, are still rather average. In this video, we'll take a deeper look at why that is the case, as we find out why Barcelona might very well end up trophyless this season. First of all, we have to talk about scoring goals. I think that Barcelona under Hansi Flick have a really attacking way of playing, and creating chances definitely won't be any problem. I mean, a team with Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Dani Olmo and Alejandro Balde is simply built to create havoc in the final third. However, who is going to finish those chances? Cause just think about this. Any world-class Barcelona team in the past had multiple attackers who were able of scoring more than 20 goals in La Liga per season. You had Romario and Stoichkov in the 90s, and more recently Eto'o, Messi, David Villa, Suarez, you name them. Barcelona have always been characterized by an attack with attackers who are lethal in front of goal, and Hansi Flick's current Barcelona simply doesn't have that. But I already hear some people saying Lewandowski will probably experience a redemption season under Hansi Flick because Hansi Flick knows him well and brought the best out of him at Bayern Munich. Well, can Hansi Flick actually bring Lewandowski back to his old level? Because let's face it, if Lewandowski this season is the same Lewandowski as last season, then Barcelona have a problem. He scored only 19 goals in La Liga. In recent years, only Memphis Depay in the 21-22 season did worse with 12 goals. A little longer ago, Samuel Eto'o in the 27-28 season only scored 16 goals. Those two seasons I've just mentioned were mediocre seasons without any big trophies. In all other seasons in the last 20 years, every top scorer had more goals than Lewandowski last season. So if Lewandowski ends up scoring less than 20 goals this season, we have a problem. So let's face the question. Can Hansi Flick actually help Lewandowski back to his old level? Well, I definitely think that Lewandowski will be better than last season. Barcelona's way of playing under Hansi Flick is more dynamic, and Lewandowski will probably get more supply and will always just have the simple task of being at the right place at the right time for tap-ins. And that might sound easy, but there is probably no one out there better than Lewandowski at tap-ins. His first goal against Valencia perfectly shows that. So he will be better than last season if you ask me. However, we cannot get around the fact that he is simply declining in general, regardless of what system he plays in. Because if it's not for the tap-ins, headers and penalties, I think Lewandowski has lost a lot of the qualities that he once had. And what am I talking about here? Well, making runs in behind the defense, shooting from distance, his general speed of execution, link-up play, those are all things that prime Lewandowski was prolific at. Back when Barcelona signed him in 2022, he also still showcased all of these qualities in his first few months. But now, as he's 36 years of age, he has simply lost some of that quality that he still had back then. Hansi Flick won't be able to change anything about that. So even though I think that Flick's system will get more out of Lewandowski than last season, he will still hold back Barcelona at times and receive a lot of criticism. And here's the thing that's worrying. Lewandowski is Barcelona's best and only real goal-scoring player. Because if I ask you what other player at Barcelona can score 20 goals in one La Liga campaign, what are you then going to say? Rafinha? No. Ferran Torres? Definitely not. Ansu Fati and Vitor Roque might not even stay at Barcelona. But what about Lamine Yamal? Well, back in La Masia he was known for scoring a lot of goals. Right now though, his qualities seem to limit themselves to dribbling and playmaking. And I don't mean that to criticize Lamine Yamal. It's completely normal for a 17-year-old to not be the full product yet. Even Messi and Ronaldo weren't lethal in front of goal at that age. So eventually, Lamine Yamal might become a really productive goal-scoring winger, just like Messi and Neymar once were. For this season though, it's too early to rely on Lamine Yamal for goals. Now, there's probably another player that you were thinking about too. Pau Victor. Pau Victor is definitely a promising player, but I think he will never have a starting 11 spot in a team with Lewandowski as the first striker, even if Lewandowski is in bad form. Lewandowski, even in a bad spell, will always be someone who is reliable for tap-ins and penalties, and Hansi Flick of all managers is the one manager who is going to trust him in good and bad times. On the wings, I don't see Pau Victor becoming a starter either with the likes of Lamine Yamal, Rafinha and Dani Olmo on the same team. Oh, there I just dropped another name, Dani Olmo. He can score quite some goals, right? Well, yeah, I see him scoring like 13 goals in La Liga, which wouldn't be bad for an attacking midfielder. Apart from him, there's also Fermin Lopez, but I'm afraid that Fermin won't have that many minutes this season. Hansi Flick will probably mainly go with Pedri as his attacking midfielder, Dani Olmo at left wing, and even if Dani Olmo is the attacking midfielder, then Rafinha would probably play at left wing. Long story short, I see Fermin Lopez having the same kind of season as last season. He won't always play, but when he does, he will have his impacts, and he'll probably score about 8 goals in La Liga this season. See, that's the problem. Barcelona's best goal scorer is a 36-year-old who's declining, and their best goal scorers after that are both attacking midfielders. I think that Barcelona will create chance after chance in every game, but they'll have a hard time being efficient in front of goal. I mean, one of the first things that Hansi Flick said after his first few training sessions was that there was a lack of natural goal scorers. And the worrying thing is that Hansi Flick's way of playing relies on scoring a lot of goals. It's a high risk, high reward strategy. You leave yourself wide open in defense, but that's okay as long as you score a lot of goals. That strategy worked well at Bayern Munich, with Prime Lewandowski, Thomas Müller, Ivan Perisic, Serge Gnabry, and Leon Goretzka all players capable of being lethal in front of goal. At Barcelona, however, I'm afraid that the lack of natural goal scorers will have its consequences for Hansi Flick. However, there are more weaknesses to Hansi Flick's Barcelona. There is one position that we all knew needed some strengthening this summer. But in fact, no new player has arrived for this position. You probably know what position I'm talking about here. The defensive midfield position where Hansi Flick has been counting on Marc Bernal this far. Hansi Flick's midfield might be a so-called double pivot, but in fact it's a really dynamic midfield, where one of these double pivot players is the actual defensive midfielder, who will stay deep and create the play from behind. Basically the Sergio Busquets role. Now here's the problem. Barcelona only have one player who is perfectly suited for that role, and it's Marc Bernal. Frenkie de Jong would ideally play as that other double pivot midfielder. This player has a lot of freedom and needs to carry the ball from defense to attack. It's the role that Marc Casado is also perfect for and the one that he played in against Valencia. Gavi is also perfect for this role, and he would be my pick for this position if everyone is fit. He is incredibly press resistant in tight spaces and his speed of execution is second to none. He would make Barcelona dominate the midfield against anyone. On top of that, his ball recoveries would save Barcelona from a lot of dangerous counterattacks, which is crucial if you're playing football as risky as that of Hansi Flick. That's the reason I would also choose Gavi above Frenkie de Jong, by the way. But back onto the topic at hand, that defensive midfield position, I think Marc Bernal can put in some great performances there this season. But we have to be careful not to rush him as he's only 17 years old. We don't want to make him end up like the next Pedri. So if Marc Bernal is not there, who do you then play in this position? Not Frenkie de Jong. He needs to have the freedom to roam to be at his best, and for that you want to play him in that other midfield role. Gavi doesn't strike me as a natural pivot, so Eric Garcia? Well, that's the solution Hansi Flick had against Valencia. Honestly, Eric Garcia is a better solution than Andreas Christensen, if you ask me. He's way more comfortable up there, his positioning is surprisingly good, and defensively he does the job well. Christensen is then again just at his best if he's just playing as a central defender at the end of the day. And apart from that, there's only new players from La Masia. Pau Prim, for example. He could perfectly play in that same role as Marc Bernal. But hey, long story short, Barcelona's best suited player for this position is a 17-year-old, while their best alternatives are Eric Garcia and Pau Prim. That's obviously not enough depth. Barcelona should have really tried harder to sign Martin Zubimendi, cause he would have been perfect. Hell, even Mikel Merino would have done the trick. He's not as natural of a pivot as Zubimendi, but it would have meant more depth. Relying on a 17-year-old as your most natural player for the position is just risky. Unless Hansi Flick finds a way to make a double pivot of Frenkie de Jong and Gavi work. But I think he would rather just play Marc Bernal there instead of trying to make that work. Lastly, this transfer window has just been awful for Barcelona in general. The last mistake that Laporta and Deco have made is letting go of Ilkay Gündogan. If you take a look at all of Barcelona's world-class midfielders, he is the only one out there who is not injury-prone and who is actually experienced. Apart from that, he's still world-class on the pitch and you can play him in every role in midfield, even though he's at his best as an attacking midfielder. It would have even made more sense to sell Frenkie de Jong because of his injuries and his wages. But it seems like Barcelona are now going to get rid of their most reliable midfielder. That's just yet another reason why Barcelona's squad isn't much more than average right now. Anyway, that's the reason why Barcelona are not world-class yet and are still rather average. They lack productivity in front of goal, they lack depth at their defensive midfield position, and they're about to sell their most reliable midfielder. You can tell me what you want, but Barcelona have never won the Champions League without multiple attackers who were able of scoring goals. And back when they won La Liga 2 years ago, Lewandowski was still genuinely world class. They still had Busquets, and their defense was really solid. And I don't see Hansi Flick's Barcelona conceding that little goals. So I'm not saying that Barcelona are bad in any way. They're just average for Barcelona standards. And this season I think we might very well end up with only the Copa del Rey. But those are just my predictions. I'm really curious as to what you guys think, so definitely let me know that in the comments down below. And of course, Força Barça, and have a good day.